Iran is not a weak country. It has the largest drone arsenal in the Middle East, and military facilities buried inside mountains. A war strategy that had worked against powerful enemies for years. And yet, in less than 2 weeks, 70% of its missile launchers ceased to exist, and more than 100 ships were destroyed or damaged. Total control of the sky. But how exactly did this happen? The answer, well, it's not that simple. Look, Iran built a real, smart, calculated plan. A plan that bet on every known weakness of the enemy. But what they didn't know is that for decades, while they were putting together this plan, the United States was developing responses to exactly this kind of threat, as if they knew that one day this moment would come. And to dismantle this plan, the United States sent an arsenal with some of the most impressive weapons ever seen in a war. Weapons that had never been used in combat before. One of them, we don't even know what it is. To understand what the United States did, you first need to understand what Iran was trying to do. Look. Iran knew one thing from the start. In a direct war against the United States, it loses, no question. The American military budget is almost 40 times bigger. The technology is decades ahead. The planes, the missiles, the ships simply can't be compared. So Iran didn't try to compete in that game. It created a different game, and the logic of that game was almost brutal in its simplicity. A typical Iranian drone, like the Shahed, costs between $20,000 and $50,000. It's the price of an average car. But the Patriot missile, which the United States uses to shoot it down, costs between $3 and $4 million. Iran sends 100 drones, the United States shoots them all down. Iran spent $5 million. The United States spent $300 million. Who wins this exchange? This logic had worked against Saudi Arabia, against Israel, against ships in the Red Sea. Iran was betting on attrition. Forcing the enemy to spend much more than you was a bet that at first seemed smart until the United States presented their response. It's called Helios. Helios is a laser system mounted directly on American Navy destroyers. It fires a concentrated energy beam that heats the drone until its structure is destroyed in seconds. No explosion, no noise, the drone simply ceases to exist. But the part that changes everything isn't the technology, it's the cost. Each shot from Helios costs just a few cents, literally. The cost is basically just electricity, the same as you spend leaving a light bulb on for a few hours. Iran has launched more than 2,000 Shahed drones since the beginning of the conflict. If the United States had shot down each one with a Patriot, they would have spent more than $6 billion. Just for drones, with laser systems like Helios, that cost drops dramatically. Iran's economic logic simply stopped working. But Iran had a second layer in this bet: volume. Send hundreds of drones at the same time and hope that some get through. And for that, the United States had Odin. Odin doesn't destroy the drone, it blinds it. It's a lower power laser that burns the drone's optical sensors, the cameras, the visual navigation systems. The drone keeps flying, but it can't see anything anymore and crashes. 8 American ships already have Odin installed. It's the system that analysts identified in images of destroyers operating near Iran during the conflict. While Helios deals with individual threats, Odin works against mass attacks. But the third response to drones is the most ironic of all. It's called LOCUST. LOCUST is an American suicide drone. a single-use attack drone that goes to the target and explodes. It costs approximately $35,000. If this sounds familiar, it's because it is. LOCUST is modeled directly after the Iranian Shahed concept. Same logic, same concept, practically the same price. The United States took the idea from Iran, developed their own version, and used it against Iran. On the first day of the conflict, the U.S. Armed Forces Central Command itself posted on social media, calling it retribution made in the United States. Think about it. Iran spent years developing the Shahed as its big advantage, and the United States responded by using exactly the same logic back. Any idea you use against us, we will use against you.
Interestingly, it was modeled after the clone of an Iranian drone, the Kamikaze Shahed 136 drone. The Shahed is a real favorite among Iranians. And when one was captured by United States forces, they took it to engineers and said, make a copy of this and make it even better.
3 answers. 3 layers. The drone response was severely degraded, but the second Iranian bet was different, older, and for decades it seemed genuinely invincible. Iran spent years moving its most important facilities, missile depots, nuclear research centers, military laboratories, inside mountains, buried in concrete, in rock, at depths that no conventional bomb can reach. Fordo, Iran's main nuclear facility, is so deep inside a mountain that Western experts spent years saying it was virtually indestructible. Not for lack of will, but for lack of technical capability. If you can't destroy it, you can't win, until the United States presented the answer. It's called the MOP, Massive Ordnance Penetrator. The MOP weighs 13 tons. That's the weight of 2 adult elephants. It's 6 meters long and was designed with a single purpose: to penetrate what shouldn't be penetrable. It makes contact with the ground and doesn't explode immediately. It keeps penetrating through earth, concrete, rock, until it reaches the right depth. Then it explodes from the inside out. The depth it reaches is equivalent to a 20-story concrete building, 20 stories downwards. And there's a detail that makes everything even more precise. 2 impacts in sequence. The first bomb opens the hole, the second, dropped right after, in the exact same spot, goes even deeper. Like a drill with 2 stages. But the MOP creates a problem. It weighs 13 tons. Most warplanes can't even get off the ground with that weight, and the few that can carry it can't enter enemy territory without being detected. There is only one plane in the world that solves this problem. I'm talking about the B-2 Spirit. The B-2 doesn't look like any plane you've ever seen. It doesn't have a tail, it doesn't have an elongated body, it's all wing. A triangular, flattened shape that looks more like science fiction than a bomber. And that's no coincidence. When a radar sends out a signal and it hits a conventional plane, the signal comes back strong and clear. On the B-2, that signal scatters in all directions. What appears on the radar is as small as a bird, a plane the size of a football field showing up as a bird. Besides that, the entire surface of the B-2 is covered with a material that absorbs the radar signal. Instead of reflecting, it works like a sponge for radio waves. Only 21 units were built worldwide, each costing more than $2 billion. And it was this plane that carried the 13-ton bombs to the mountains of Iran. Weeks before the conflict in Parchin, a military complex 30 kilometers southeast of Tehran, one of the most sensitive sites in the Iranian defense program. Satellite images recorded careful work at a facility known as Taligan 2, linked to the country's nuclear program. A new layer of concrete, then earth on top. Whoever supervised this work probably went home thinking they had protected something important. 3 weeks later, satellite images showed 3 precise impact points on the surface of the facility. Iran spent years building depth, and the United States showed up with the only weapon in the world designed to make that depth irrelevant. And it was during these missions that something caught the attention of analysts around the world. In the footage from the first day of attacks, one Tomahawk missile appeared completely black, while all the others were gray. This one was different, and no one in the government explained what it was. Analysts suspect that it is a version that hasn't been revealed yet, with a surface that absorbs radar signals in the same way as the B-2. And unlike previous Tomahawks, this version can possibly be redirected to a new target during flight, in real time. None of this has been confirmed yet. The weapon revealed itself when it was filmed, and to this day, the American government hasn't said anything about it. But of all the American responses, one is more disturbing than all the others combined. Because it didn't happen during the war, it happened long before. Look. Iran's third bet was about time. The idea that it would have time to react when the attacks began, that its radars would work, that it could coordinate a response. That was perhaps the most misguided bet of all. Because when the missiles were launched on February 28th, 2026, Iran had already been operating in the dark for weeks. Before any bombing, before any missile, 2 specialized units of the American Armed Forces were already in motion. Cyber Command, the division responsible for the United States cyber warfare operations, and the Space Force, the military branch dedicated to operations in space. General Dan Caney, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, publicly confirmed that these 2 units were the first to act. In his words, space and cyber operations left the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond efficiently. But how exactly was this done? Well, part of the answer is hundreds of kilometers above us. The Space Force operates satellites in orbit over the Middle East 24 hours a day. These satellites don't take pictures, they detect heat. And a ballistic missile in the seconds after launch generates an enormous amount of heat, which these satellites identify almost instantly. Iran fires a missile from a launcher truck on a deserted road. Within seconds, the satellites detect the heat and calculate the position of the launcher. This information reaches the American forces in the region. According to President Trump himself, the response time was as short as 4 minutes between the launch and the counterattack. But the Space Force did not work alone. Cyber Command was acting in parallel, taking down Iranian military communications, blocking radars, preventing different Iranian units from being able to communicate with each other. And it worked in ways that go beyond what you can imagine. Weeks before the conflict, hackers broke into Iranian satellite transmissions. Millions of households in Iran began receiving messages on their TVs calling for resistance against the regime. A prayer time app, used daily by millions of Iranians, was hacked. Instead of the prayer times, political messages appeared, and the traffic cameras in Tehran, The regular street cameras that monitored traffic were compromised and, according to the Financial Times, used to plan precision attacks inside the Iranian capital. On the day of the attack, Iranian radars were being electronically jammed and military communications were down. Iran couldn't coordinate its defense because it couldn't communicate with its own systems. As you can see, Iran tried to play a high-level chess game with the United States. But the pieces on the other side of the board were different from what it expected to find. For decades, war meant tanks, planes, soldiers. The United States has just shown that it means something else. And this new meaning, we are seeing it happen in real time, in something as unexpected as a prayer app displaying the wrong message. Now, I want to know your opinion. Which of the 3 American responses did you find most impressive? Comment down below. If this video helped you better understand what's happening in the Middle East, share it with someone who also wants to understand. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe. There's much more to come. See you in the next video.